Imagine a quiet village in the American heartland, with isolated houses, snow-covered fields, and a community where everyone knows each other. Now imagine that, in one of these seemingly normal situations, a solitary man harbored a secret so horrific it would redefine the concept of horror. That man was Ed Gein, the butcher of Plainfield. Ed was born in 1906 in Wisconsin, the son of an alcoholic father and a fanatically religious mother, Augusta Gein. He grew up in a stifling home where sin and revenge mingled with fear and guilt. Augusta believed all women except herself to be impure creatures. She taught her son that the world was corrupt and deserved punishment. From an early age, Ed was isolated. His mother forbade him from making friends, saying contact with others was a sin. When his father died and his older brother passed away under mysterious circumstances, possibly because of Ed, he was left alone with the woman he loved and feared most. When Augusta died, something inside him broke. The loss of his only authority figure and affection left him completely lost. The house became a morbid sanctuary. He locked his mother's rooms, keeping them intact, while the rest of the home rotted under dirt, debris, and something much worse. Ed Gein began visiting cemeteries at night. He would dig up the bodies of women who resembled his mother and take their parts home. He would use them to reconstruct her, as if trying to bring Augusta back to life. Over time, what began as desecration turned into murder. In 1957, local store owner Bernice Warden disappeared. Police followed the clues to Ed's farm, and what they found there was indescribable. Bernice's body was hung upside down, open like a slaughtered animal. But the horror didn't end there. Inside the house, investigators found bowls made from human skulls, masks sewn from skin, furniture covered in human hide, and even a suit made entirely from female parts. Ed Gein's farmhouse resembled a museum of nightmares. It was as if his mind had materialized in every corner, a mixture of delirium, obsession, and religious madness. During interrogation, Gein spoke calmly. He recounted his crimes as if describing household chores. He said he heard voices, that his mother was calling him, and that he had to obey. In his twisted mind, he wasn't killing. He was obeying a sacred calling. Psychologists diagnosed him with schizophrenia and delusional disorder. He believed he could absorb the essence of women by wearing their skin, in a ritual of reconnecting with his lost maternal figure. This psychological profile, the man who blends love, fear, and violence around the figure of his mother, has inspired some of cinema's greatest villains. Norman Bates from Psycho, Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and even Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs were all based on him. But what makes Ed Gein's case so disturbing isn't just the brutality of his crimes. It's the sense that he believed he was acting with purpose. He didn't seem to take pleasure in his victims' suffering. He acted like a man trying to heal an internal wound in the worst possible way. This emotional disconnect is typical of psychotic minds, but the symbolic component is what is frightening: the desire to recreate maternal love through death. Gein's house was demolished in 1958, but the psychological impact of his actions echoed for decades. Journalists, psychiatrists, and screenwriters have tried to understand what was going on inside that mind, and all have come to the same conclusion. Ed Gein's madness was a form of twisted devotion. Loneliness, isolation, and religious fanaticism created a monster who believed he was acting in the name of love. And that's what makes him so terrifying, because he shows how love and madness can be two sides of the same coin. In the films inspired by him, the horror is visible. But in real life, the terror was in the silence, in the quiet routine of a man who greeted neighbors and repaired utensils, while inside his home, death was molded into macabre art. The psychiatrists who examined him said he lived in a state of symbiotic psychosis. Ed saw no distinction between body and soul. He believed that by wearing the skin of his victims, he absorbed part of them. especially his mother, the woman who had the greatest impact on him. Gein was declared mentally incompetent and sent to a psychiatric hospital. There he remained for nearly 3 decades until he died of cancer in 1984. It is said that until the end, he continued to speak of his mother as if she was still alive. Ed Gein's case raises an uncomfortable question. What happens when love mixes with madness, when attachment turns into a psychological prison, and the desire to preserve someone destroys everything around it? Gein wasn't just a murderer, he was the mirror of a mind crumbling under the weight of repression, guilt, and blind devotion. His crime was merely the visible symptom of a breakdown that began much earlier, at home in childhood, with his mother's lectures. It's disturbing to think that on the outside, he seemed ordinary, someone who repaired tools, smiled at local markets and tended his yard. But inside, a quiet storm was brewing, fueled by years of emotional abuse and isolation. When neighbors learned the truth, the shock was so great that many refused to believe it. They said Ed Gein didn't look like a killer. And perhaps that's the greatest horror of all. Evil sometimes hides behind normality. Ed Gein's legacy lies not only in the films he inspired, but also in the warning his story carries. A warning about the destructive power of fanaticism, loneliness, and untreated psychological trauma. The horror of Plainfield is a reminder that the human mind is capable of anything, even turning love into madness and devotion into monstrosity. And no matter how hard we try to understand, there are things that simply defy logic, because true terror isn't blood or death. It's the mind that believes it's doing the right thing while walking in the shadows. Did you enjoy the content? Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more mind fragments, where we reveal what many prefer to ignore.